The wheel of time turns,
and ages come and pass.
leaving memories that become legend.
Legend fades to myth,
And even myth is long forgotten when the age that gave it birth comes again. In one age,
called the Third Age by some,
an age yet to come,
an age long past.
a wind rose in the mountains of mist.
The wind was not the beginning
There are neither beginnings nor endings,
to the turning of the wheel of time,
but it was
a beginning.
Welcome to episode 4 of Another Turning.
Today we're going to discuss our predictions for the second episode of the Amazon Wheel of Time show, titled currently Shadows Wait. Shadows Waiting.
Yeah, Shadows. Yeah. So I saw we have been getting some comments on our last video, and there was one really good one by. I didn't pull something up, and I should have. Yeah, we got a good comment saying how they liked our how we went, and one of the things they mentioned was that what we predicted for the end of the episode, they thought it could go longer, and I think we both kind of agreed that they could probably go to the fairy scene in episode 1.
I don't know that long. I've been trying to read the books in preparation for this, and I was behind when we recorded last time. But I reread those scenes, and if we'd stopped where I had suggested to stop, it's kind of an awkward place, because the timing of that is weird. I think they could get to... I don't know where exactly I would have them stop, because I don't know, maybe when the fog starts rolling in? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. When I was editing for our video, I thought it would just be really funny because kind of where we predicted the end of the first episode is like a screenshot of book 1's cover.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of want that. Like, I think that's a cute spot, but like I said, it's kind of an awkward place. I think if they adjust that whole run a little bit, they can still make that their ending shot of episode 1. I really do want it to be the ending shot of episode 1. But I think it could be after the Drakkar has been revealed. So it could be, instead of like, pan up, see the Drakkar, and then start episode 2 being like, oh yes, that was a Drakkar. Have that scene at the end of episode 2, and then have them run. And then end of episode 1, sorry. And then start episode 2 closer to when Moiraine starts rolling the fog in to cover them.
Yeah, I can agree. Or the person who made the comment was Brandon Drake on YouTube, commented on the video. A really good comment. Shout out to him. So, also, Nabliss came out with a video talking about the whole first season. I stopped watching after he broke down episode 1 because I didn't want to watch the rest of the episode breakdowns he did, and I guess he did a lot of researching on how long certain scenes were in like Game of Thrones and things.
Basically what he did is he watched Game of Thrones and realized that scenes typically were anywhere from like 2 to 6 seconds long, and then he broke down Wheel of Time into those like scenes and did like the first 4, how Eye of the World could fit into 4 episodes, and he had them ending at Terran Ferry for episode
1. He had that it was ended after they crossed the Terran Ferry, yes.
Right.
Which, again, I didn't do all the looking at Game of Thrones and things like that. I'm not a cinematographer. It might be possible.
Yeah.
It could be very possible. A chase scene, yes, it doesn't need to take that long. So, I do think it is a good stopping point after the river.
I think stop before the river. I don't want them to leave Emond's Field, or not Emond's Field. I don't want them leaving the 2 rivers in the first episode. I don't know why. It's something about that thematically.
Yeah, I could see that. So okay, with that episode 2, which was the post by Rafe Judkins forever ago when he was posting scripts, it was Shadows Waiting. Okay, so we're thinking based on when episode 1 ends and episode 2 starts, what we're gonna say, fade into them galloping through the fog?
Yeah, that would be my suggestion. So Shadows Waiting, just before we jump into our predictions, is the title of chapter 19 of Eye of the World, which starts with them arriving in Shadar Logoth and then goes until the Trollocs arrive in the city as well. So to give you some scope of where we're probably going to be.
Okay, so sorry. Yeah, that's a good thing to put out there.
Fade in on the fog, and then I think they can arrive at Terran Ferry at the start of this episode.
Well, in the books, what's really interesting is how it's described. Is I think fade in, them galloping through the fog. Point of view doesn't matter at this point. I think with the show, and I'm just putting this out here, is there's very much so a third person omniscient almost in Wheel of Time.
In the book, it's third person limited because it's from third person, but we're in one person's head.
But we get so many different point of views, so we almost have all of it. It's weird.
Right.
But we do have the thoughts in people's heads, and in a TV show, thoughts are weird.
Right.
So point of view doesn't matter.
Yeah, in this scene, I want to, like, the way it's written in the books is it's all from Rand's perspective. So you get Rand's reaction. At times he looks at, like, Tom or Egwene to get their reaction. But I want to see everybody. So I want, like, that, you know, a little bit of, we see Matt and we see Perrin and we see everybody during this scene.
Well, I mean, this is just from watching a lot of things, movies, TV shows, a bunch of people galloping on horses.
Right.
It's not that interesting. What makes it interesting is camera angles and shots like
well,
that.
And the
you get
facial expression.
them from the side, from the front, zooming in on different people's faces. But there is one thing. The Run, Bella, Run. Is that in the fog?
That's before
or
that.
Before the fog.
But that could be where they actually, that would be a great moment to end episode 1 on. Gosh, I feel like we're like retconning our entire last episode.
And whatever, we're allowed to retcon because we're in charge of these videos, so we can do whatever we want.
Yeah, I think that'd be a good moment to end episode 1 on. Not that it's the significance of it is necessarily understood at that point, but
well, that's what I was gonna say. Is I wanted to bring it up because it's a very important scene for anybody who has read the whole series, and especially if you've done rereads.
Right.
But that is one of the first scenes that, for somebody new, I don't think it's going to, if done well, give anything away, because we talked about the ambiguity of who's important and stuff like that.
Right.
And I think it's very important they keep it in a way that something's going on.
Right. I think this is something I think the music will play a part in. So I'm not somebody that pays a ton of attention to scores in movies and stuff. But typically, individual characters or even individual actions will have some sort of short musical theme. And I think Rand channeling should be one of those themes. And that's something that can be
I could see that.
used in that moment. Have Matt, Joshua, who's playing Rand, have him mutter under his breath something like, "Come on, Bella, run, you gotta run faster." And then with whatever panicked music they're playing, weave that theme into it so that you don't necessarily notice it, but then on rewatches or for people that do pay attention to scores and stuff, later on when they're using that theme more overtly, when you rewatch that first episode, you'll catch that and be like, "Oh, I get it."
That is very true. Because part of the thing I said is back to the whole you're not in people's heads. That's weird in shows. We don't get his inner thoughts, and in the books, his inner thoughts make everything a bigger deal with that.
So I think you need to have him say something out loud so that you can actually
Oh, of course. And also when it comes to the score of a show, my personal opinion, if you notice it, it's probably bad.
Yes
and that
and no.
sounds weird, but the whole point of a score is to emphasize, make things better, tie a scene together.
Right.
And when a scene is tied together, unless you're purposely analyzing things, just watching it from enjoying it, you should only see it as a completed scene. If anything specifically stands out.
Yeah, it's the same thing with costuming or setting or things like that. If it all fits together the way it's supposed to, it's background. It's important, but you don't necessarily notice it. You only notice it if it stands out because it's wrong.
Or it's either bad, doesn't fit, or it's better than everything else, which is just as bad.
Yeah.
Okay, so back on track. So they're galloping through the fog. You see all the little lights. As they get to the town, they slow down.
Wake up
Talk
Hightower.
to Master Hightower.
This stuff, there isn't anything significant in this whole sequence, I think, to change. I think the whole, like,
Um,
them bearing their weapons is kind of a cool scene.
yeah.
I don't know
Uh,
that there's much I would change in this whole section.
they get across now. There has been a leak, or what is it?
Brandon Sanderson, when he visited the set in Prague, got a bunch of pictures. He hasn't been allowed to share most of them yet, but he shared one in like his newsletter or something like that. And somebody did a whole thing. There's a video, trying to remember. I think it's Wheel of Time Theory, Watt Theory that did it. Did a whole video on how you can get this information from a video or from a picture. And basically, the tag on the picture says it's from season 1, episode 2, after they cross the ferry, and then something about Hightower following the ferry and drowning.
Okay, and now I know when this came out, me and you talked about this, and I don't remember if we came to an agreement, but first of all, this back to the whole are things leaked isn't an accident. You don't embed that
You don't
information.
put that much information in a picture. Yeah.
I'm doing these videos, and when I make it a video from Movie Maker, the audio, you can add a title and the artist and all that stuff. Yeah, I add a couple of things there to just because I can, and I think the YouTube video I watched said you should to organize it better. But a picture, you might, if especially in film, you might add a little bit more information like that because for promotional reasons or other like storyboards and stuff, it might be important to know exactly where it fits in the story.
Maybe, I don't know.
But that much information is a little ridiculous.
It seems a little like intentional, but whether it was intentional or not, what do you think of the change of having Hightower die?
Pointless.
I like it.
Okay, so we didn't agree on it.
Okay. No.
I don't think it has a point because, especially with all the talks of cuts and changes and making things better, I know I'm not a big person for change, but I can accept it if it works. What purpose does Hightower dying serve?
It shows. So here's the thing. I think it's hard for us to understand his anger or whatever, his reaction in the books to the ferry sinking, because like we see Lan give him the money, he can just rebuild his livelihood. What does it matter? I think him actually throwing himself after it shows just how much it means to him. But I also, to a certain degree, think it helps show Maureen's ruthlessness in that, like, she doesn't care. Like, it doesn't matter.
But I'm hard pressed to think that if it was a voluntary action by Hightower to just jump into the water. First of all, this guy who runs a ferry, he can swim.
Well, there's a whirlpool.
Because of whirlpool and stuff like that. But do you think Moiraine would let him just die? Yes, she's ruthless, but she would scoop him out of the water with a channeling of air, set him on the side, and pay him a little bit more money.
Well, and but that's an overt use of the power. A whirlpool appearing in the river, yeah, it's mysterious, and yeah, maybe there's something, but it's pretty easy for, like, all the workers to rationalize that and be like, well, it happened, but there's no way that lady caused it. However, her overtly grabbing him out of the water and pulling him to shore using weaves of air, that's a pretty obvious use of the one power that nobody's going to be able to deny. And she's trying not to show herself. But then this then leads into giving more reason for the Two Rivers people not to trust her. Up until this point, she's only done good things for them. She's saved people in the village. She healed Tam. She hasn't done anything bad. Even sinking the river, like, is easy to sinking the ferry is easy to rationalize. It's like, this makes sense. But not saving a man's life in pursuit of hiding who she is and what she does, that's the first time she can be said to have done something actually bad, in my opinion.
Well, see, this is my thing. And that right there is exactly the reason why she would save him. Because in her mind, and based on something that's going to come up later, when she lets him inburn, she would not cause more trouble by saving that man's life than his life is worth.
Right, and I think that's just it.
His life
I don't think
his life is no. His one life when she's standing right there using the power to save his life is more important than the fact that it might cause some problems.
I think for her it's more important for them to stay hidden. I think that's her opinion. And that's I think what it's trying to show is that for Moraine, it's more important that they stay hidden, that she doesn't reveal herself, that she doesn't give the dock workers a reason to talk than it is to save this guy.
Look, I could sit here and do a 25-minute episode of just arguing you into submission about this.
The thing is, throughout this whole thing, there's times where, like, Lan threatens somebody and Moraine stops him, and Rand's like, would he have done it if she hadn't stopped him? Like, the big, earlier in the book when, Tom shows up at the barn.
Yes.
There's like that moment where like Lan is like holding his sword and Moraine stops him and Rand's like, would he have killed him? I think this gives you that definitive answer rather than leaving it like ambiguous. I think it's nice to have this answer that like, yeah, Moraine is willing to have people die if it's for her cause.
I get that, but in the stables, that was before the cover is blown. Once the Drakkar shows up, all bets are out, okay? She uses the power to create the fog, so anything who can sense her using the power has already sensed her using the power. When she sinks the ferry, it is purely to make it harder to follow, which is a rational reason to sink the ferry, because obviously Trollocs crossing a river is difficult. If there's an already built raft, makes it easier for him. Rational reason. Okay, Hightower dives in. She lets him die. No rational reason. She can use the power. Yes, some people will see her.
Right, and then they talk.
By the time anybody important would have found out that an Aes Sedai saved a guy from a river would come to investigate, they wouldn't be around. So that's why I think it's worth saving.
I don't know.
But
I think a lot of this will depend
we agree
on
to disagree.
how it's portrayed. Does she try to help him and not get there in time? Yeah, there's too much we don't know. But I like the change. I think it ups the stakes. Anyway, we'll move on.
But it makes other things less interesting, which we'll get to.
All right,
by moving on.
Camp. So they spend the night camped.
They camp out.
This is, I think, one of those other ones we should see in different perspectives. So this is when Egwene has her first little lesson with Moraine. And I think this is one we should get from Egwene's perspective rather than Rand's.
Really, because, okay, up to this point, I would imagine, doesn't really have a point of view. It's the group is the point of view.
But, so the way this is done in the books is that, the boys and Lan and Tom are taking care of hobbling the horses for the night, while Moraine and Egwene go into the little, camp roots, the tree roots to talk. And then Rand comes in and hears them talking about it. And then he watches as Egwene does the whole thing with Moraine's little stone. I think just when they go into the roots, we should follow them into the roots rather than staying out with the boys. And then just get that scene. I think it just cuts it cuts a few seconds off of the time. And I think it shows it.
Oh, I agree.
It implies, I just don't it's hard to explain how different it would be in the books or in the show because, like you said, we don't really see through a person's eyes. But it just kind of implies a little more
Yeah,
I don't know.
I get what you're saying. Is as they walk up, in the books it's like the women go right in and we follow them. In the show,
yeah.
Is the camera should follow them in, and depending on the conversation, and the reason I say that is. Implied in the books, it's not a lot. You can channel, girl. Let me show you, kind of thing.
Sort of. Yeah. Well, they have
later conversations.
Periodic conversations.
I think I agree. Yeah, I agree with we follow them in. Then after that is the whole, hey, we were there, but this many days ago. The weird flashback way he wrote the next section is interesting. But it's pretty much the montage for them getting to
travel montage to Baerlon. I think. There's a few important things that happen along this montage, and I don't know how I would portray it because I'm I'm not a cinematographer. I know nothing. But the things that happen during this traveling that we need to see at least some of. Moraine and Egwene.
Well, first of all, Eye of the Tiger needs to start playing as they start learning how to use their weapons.
Right. We have Lan training the boys. We have Moraine training Egwene. Tom does some storytelling, which I think is a great way to get in some world building info dumps a little more subtly. Because you wouldn't have him like sit there and tell a story for like 5 minutes of the show, but you can have like little like 5-second snippets of him telling a story that kind of weave together to get in a little bit of world building info.
I'm gonna be completely honest. If I were a writer and I wanted to actually write out how to do this, I would probably take more time trying to figure out these. I think it's it's about 10 days travel, if I remember right. I would take more time trying to figure this out than like all of episode 1.
Honestly.
Only because based on what we've talked about, we want to keep the ambiguity. We want to change up the point of views a lot more.
Right.
So one thought I have is, I mean, it's however many days it is kind of almost switch. I could see doing the montage is pick an activity and then pick a character that's best to focus on for that activity.
Right. So I think like you could definitely do things in different ways. You could have like, because the first like Lan and them training is they do the bow, and he knows they all use the bow. So Matt doesn't have a weapon other than the bow. Although I kind of think Matt should bring a quarterstaff with him, but unrelated side thing. I think he should, because I think it does. All of the boys leave with a weapon that then becomes like symbolic for them. And Matt leaves with a bow and then doesn't use the bow again after the first book. Like, anyway, I think then like you could have Matt sitting with Tom a little bit. Like, I think there's a way to do it. I can't.
I'm not going to try. Yeah, that's why I said I'm not going to go into details. But this is my biggest thing. The only thing I have about this section is in the books, it's almost like Rand is telling us a story of how he went from point A to point B.
Right.
And I think that works. But do we want Rand to be narrating this montage, so to speak?
No, and that's just it.
We want somebody narrating it.
No.
And I think
it should be a pretty big overview of the whole party. Like, we don't need to see Egwene learning how to channel from Rand's perspective. You know, we don't need to. The storytelling doesn't need to have a perspective. Lan trains both Perrin and Rand, but we only ever get that from Rand's perspective, but we can see Perrin learning how to use his axe too. So I think this montage doesn't need a perspective. I think it's a pretty overview of the whole party.
Yeah, I get that. It's just maybe everybody, like I said, because we switch for whoever point of view it is, maybe they narrate a little bit. Because narrating for me is a way how you get inner thoughts out in my mind. Oh, you mean actual
narration, like voiceover narration?
Yes, that's what I meant. Because I feel like we need some of those inner thoughts, because a lot of important character things come out here. We have the whole Rand-Egwene relationship
right,
concept.
But you just have them have some sort of conflict in the middle, like what actually happens. You have them have that discussion of, oh, Rand, I'm going to channel, and he's like, voiceovers for narration are just, they're clunky. That's why the first Dune movie was so bad. They're like clunky and awkward. I've never seen
the first Dune movie.
Pretty bad.
I don't know. I'm not 100% sure on how to do it.
But montage. Travel montage. I don't know how they're going to do it.
Okay. They get to Baerlon. All right, they get to Baerlon, go through the gate.
Do you think they should go to Baerlon?
Yes. Well, see, because, and this is why where I want to get to, it's after Baerlon, but the whole high tower thing, where how you described that it might show her as being potentially evil, you could maybe skip Baerlon, but my whole point of it was the inn burning and her rationalization of that to Nynaeve, which again, when does Nynaeve catch up to why we should have Baerlon? But her rationalizing letting the inn burn and not go back really puts in perspective.
It's the exact same thing as sinking the ferry.
But there aren't lives involved with the ferry.
And nobody got hurt at the inn burning.
But at the time, they don't know that.
I guess. The reason, so this is the whole Barallon thing, and we could talk about the things that happen in Barallon. I don't think anybody has ever argued and that the things that happen in Barallon don't need to happen. Like meeting Min, and Nynaeve coming back are
Best
the two big
character.
ones.
And the progression of Fane.
That I'm less interested in personally, but the argument I've heard is that these scenes can be moved to different spots, and it would be a money saving endeavor to just have one huge set that doesn't need to be built because all of these scenes can happen in different places.
I guess, but I mean, really?
Yeah, that's how I feel on it.
The first 3 towns to include Barallon can literally be the same set.
A little bit, just dressed differently.
Exactly. Barallon is the largest of them, but it's not a city, okay?
Right.
Well,
And that's the whole point. I don't know. I don't
Barallon
know.
and you can have a lot of set reuses because Emmons Field, Tarn Ferry, same. Any other small town throughout the whole world can be the exact same set as Emmons Field with a few changes.
Right.
Then you have the next step up, your Barallon, your Four Kings, anything around that range. Whitebridge, possibly. Barallon, Whitebridge, they can all be approximately the same set. And then you have your Camelin, Carian, Tyr, those sorts of things, which have to be their own set. You cannot
Right, you can't reuse
reuse
them because the
unless you
architecture is
CGI
supposed
a
to be so
lot.
different. Yeah. All right, so we're on the same page.
So
Keep Barallon. There's no point skipping it.
keep Barallon.
All right, so we have the bath scene.
My favorite character still has been cast. Oh, sorry.
Well, when they
I
first,
want to skip my favorite character.
yeah, we'll skim through this stuff, but the bath scene. Keep.
I think so
Oh, totally.
because one, the biggest thing, and EHR probably is one of the people that has influenced me a lot. Although I have opinions, them being literature majors made a big point on one of their early episodes that this is like a time of rest.
Right.
And that bath scene really shows the concept.
They're cleaning off their journey. It's a good moment. It really is. Barallon, I think, is that for all of it. They also have the scene that the next night where they're like all hanging out and they're dancing. Like, I think it's that moment of rest
Yes.
that you need. Otherwise, the entire, first 4 episodes will just be like panically running across country.
Yeah.
Like, you need those moments.
And this is my thing with it is also, and I'm a guy here and I'm saying it too, definitely some nice tight butts on the guys.
Right, like
we have to see it in that scene.
There's nothing that's going to draw audiences earlier than Daniel Henning naked in the bath. Like, it's just going to be a draw.
I mean, this is also my thing. I think it would be kind of interesting that we see more naked men than women
early on
in the first season of the show.
That's true.
But no, I think it's very important because it's bath
Then
scene.
the dream sequence. This is the one where this is the first dream I would do. See, I know you said keep the one from earlier, but I would start with this dream sequence, which is when Baalzamon breaks all the rats' backs. And it's also the first time we hear that all the boys are having these dreams.
Yeah, I could see before Barallon, I think we need to see some during the montage or other times when they're in camp and people are sleeping and maybe Moraine's being creepy and still awake. See the fact that these people aren't sleeping well. They're having nightmares.
Yeah, I would do that.
I think is important.
That sounds good.
To show, so then we can have this dream sequence, which I think is good to keep.
Right.
And we could be like, interesting. So whoever it is having a nightmare. And I would almost go for the artistic concept of leave whoever it is ambiguous.
Right. I'm 50-50 on this, whether the whole shot should be done like almost in like a first person thing. So we don't ever see who's dreaming.
That could work too.
Or the other option would be you have the dream and like the camera pans, and every time it pans, the person having the dream switches.
I would almost say, I don't think so. I think it either needs to be first person from the dreamer's point of view, or as it's panning, the person has almost like general features, do some CGI work. The reason for this is because that's one of the features of the dreams is
Baalzamon doesn't
Baalzamon
know who's who.
does not recognize them. They look in the mirror and they can't and that'd be good for the first person.
Yeah.
Why I say it'd be the best. You look in the mirror and they can't see their own reflection. So we don't know whose dream it is.
Right. The only reason I hesitate to do that, though, is then you have to have clunky dialogue later establishing that they've all had this dream, which works well in the book, but I think it's a bit of a telling, not showing thing when you do it in the show. And I think if we just got that dream confirmed, being from all three boys during the dream, it would cut out some of that clunkier dialogue later on.
Well, see, this is how I would do it. Is because, like I said, during the montage, showing them camping at some point, showing them tossing and turning in their sleep is how I would get into the dream sequence. Is because do they dance before the dream sequence, or is that the next night?
No, that's the next night. Yeah, this is they get to Bear Lawn, take a bath, go to bed.
All right, so they take the bath, and it shows them kind of separating and everybody settling down, and use a few seconds to show, like, as they're falling asleep, show all three of them tossing and turning just like earlier ones. Like, what the heck is going on? And then fade into the dream in the first person point of view. So we know they're all having nightmares. And then you could get away with not as much dialogue in the next day.
Yeah, no, I actually really like the idea of doing it almost from a first person. I think that's a way you can make the dreams have a distinctness that makes the dream stand out, which is usually one of the issues with adapting dream sequences for shows. So I think doing that first person helps add to that. And then, yeah, you could have that cool shot of like the mirror where their face is blurry and you can't really see who it is. I think that would be a good way to do it. It would be a really cool cinematographic like shot.
Yeah. Part of it is because, like, similar to how we talked about the Quarry Road, and one of the things I've heard from different podcasts and stuff is the dream sequences is what is it on The Wheel Weaves. She always says, if I'm confused, it must be a dream sequence. That's kind of how I want it to be in the show. I want it to distinctly be like we're in first person all of a sudden. Everything's kind of off and weird.
The color is weirdly unsaturated, and yeah, I think there's a way to do it. I think that'd be a cool way to do it. Definitely.
There's a few things that I want to have nightmares of, and I want to have nightmares of these kids' nightmares.
They wake up.
Yeah.
They find out that the rats all have broken backs. I don't know how to do this in the show.
I don't mind going with Rand's point of view.
Yeah, for the morning.
Unless they radically change the show.
The one thing I think I would change is I would have all three boys sleeping in the same room instead of the weird, we're going to shove Rand in a room with Tom and Lan for some reason because he's the main character. Yeah, that was
always weird in the show.
Yeah, so in the show I think have them all in the same room. And so like maybe Rand wakes up, Matt's already gone, and Perrin is sick to kind of already establish that.
And again, that would also make the whole, how you said it's clunky, explaining it the next day. Not really, because if they're sleeping in the same room, it makes it a lot easier for these things. It could be in the dream, it could be like all of a sudden, like everything quickly snaps to one of the boys waking up, looks over, have Perrin, from Perrin's point of view, he wakes up, sees the other two like tossing and turning horribly in their sleep, and then he falls back asleep, and then wake up and it's Rand. In the morning.
Or something like that.
Little things like that. So Rand, he goes downstairs, he gets food, rats' backs are broken in the inn.
And then he meets Min.
Nothing really. Then he gets all headachy, he goes outside, he meets Min. They really don't need to change anything. This is literally like 15 seconds from waking up to meeting Min. And then we need to spend the rest of the episode with Min.
The rest of it?
Yes.
Just get rid of everybody else?
The rest of the season. No, but this is probably going to be very boring.
It's gotta be dialogue. There's no way to get around it. It just being this exposition dump. But I think there's ways between like the music and how it's shot and how the Min actress acts that can make it interesting.
I want Min to be almost forgettable, to be completely
Really?
honest in this episode.
Interesting.
Because, other than her dialogue, because really, okay, we don't need to make her super strange. She needs to look like a regular girl in boys' clothes with a little shorter hair. I don't want them to do anything to make her stand out too much.
Right, but I don't think there's any way to make her not stand out, right? She's a girl in boys' clothes. She
Well,
says weird,
yes,
crazy things to Rand. She's gonna be memorable. And I don't think they should go out of their way to make her memorable. But I think,
that's what I mean more.
yeah, I think she acts weird. She's weirdly forward. She's telling Rand all these weird things. There's her ending line of we'll meet again, sheep herder, or whatever she says. I think I want her to be a character that people are going to be like, what was that? But not necessarily a when is she coming back, you know?
Yeah, that's what I mean. But what I mean by forgettable is the fact that it's like you have this kind of weird scene, but by the end of the episode, you're like almost don't remember it because with everything else that goes on, it's just kind of like you don't because we're not in Rand's head, so we don't have his crazy weird thoughts.
Right, and his like weird obsession that he starts to form.
So I think what I mean is you have this weird girl, and what I mean by boring is like don't there's so many tropes of the whole like I see things talking in a weird voice and stuff and be like, no, I just want this to be a tomboyish looking girl flirting with this boy in a way by telling him all this weird stuff.
Right.
It should just sound like a girl flirting with a boy.
Yeah, I don't want her to sound like
in a teasing
some
way.
old hag imbuing prophecy onto him. Like, I do want it to be like her in a conversational tone, but that almost makes it more unnerving, you know?
And when he asks about, oh, what did you see of all these people? It should be almost like the reading of the symptoms or the side effects of taking the drug or a medication. It should almost be like, yep, I see this, 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 and this. What's the big deal? I don't want it to have any emphasis. Like, that's how it should be treated.
Interesting. Yeah,
I
this
think.
is one of those scenes. I don't know how they'll do it. I just don't think there's any way around it being an exposition dump. There's just no way around that. So I think there has to either
Yeah,
be
but it's like a 2-minute exposition dump.
2 minutes is a long time.
Oh, whatever.
But yeah, I don't know.
We're gonna be staring at a pretty girl's eyes the whole time. So
Yeah, I don't think that'll be it.
no, I think it'll be all based on subtlety. I think it should be, yeah, this girl saying some weird things. In her intonation should be almost flirtatious, but like, you know, that I'm teasing you because I'm a friend and flirting with you, not the, hey, let's go back to my place
Right, but
flirting.
that kind of thing where it's just so familiar that it's a little
You're
uncomfortable
obviously a kid.
for somebody you just met.
Yeah.
Like, she's acting like she's grew up with him when they just met. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think when she's talking about the things she sees around people, it should just be kind of like, oh, I see this, I see that.
Yeah, just very conversational.
Oh, I went to the mall today. And then when he kind of gets to him, she kind of gets a little bit more serious for a second, like all in facial, then goes back to relaxed, mostly relaxed, and then as she's telling him about his, you kind of just see her eyes wander off to the sides of him.
Maybe. Yeah, it's definitely something that's going to require
like
a lot of subtlety
something
on the part of the actress, and I don't know how they're going to do it. I am very interested.
I know how I would do it.
All right.
All right. Gosh, we need to speed up. We got a lot more to get through.
Yeah, Rand bumps into Fane.
He bumps into Fane, which I think it's very important to show how bad Fane has changed.
I don't think it should be a big interaction like it was in the book. I really think it should be like Rand bumps into a ragged old man, not old man, but like a ragged guy, and keeps walking, but the camera pans to him and you see that it's Fane. I don't think they should talk.
But the implications, the possibility of why the inn gets burned down.
I don't think that's that important.
Is the only reason. Then he runs into Mat. This next scene is important. The whole splash mud on the white cloaks. This might be the first time I would want. No, never mind. I want to keep the ambiguity. We just kind of. This is going to be a lot of on the acting. Is just show Rand not feeling good.
Yeah, I don't know how to do this one.
All of a sudden weird.
Because To be quite honest, I don't think the White Cloaks are that important in this scene. All honesty. But you do need to show what's going on with Rand somehow.
Yeah, it could be a different scene, but just because of the high stakes of it being the White Cloaks, and by this point we have some information about how dangerous and the White Cloaks are, but also they're outside of the regular law of the city. It couldn't just be a city guard. He'd get arrested
Right.
and go to jail. It has to be something else.
Right.
It could be just a group of super burly guys or something. But
Well, it's not even like what I'm saying is like what this actual interaction is to show the state Rand's in. I don't care. I don't care if it's him bumping and giggling with somebody he clearly shouldn't threaten. I don't think like this scene could be completely radically
Yeah.
changed and it wouldn't matter to me as long as Rand's state gets across, because I don't think the fact that he ticked off some White Cloaks is the important part of this scene.
But that's important for them showing up at the gate later when they're
Not
trying to leave.
really. All they need to know is
Why would they show?
there was the
I don't know.
implication
You have
that
to
an
introduce
Aes
the
Sedai
White
was
Cloaks
there.
somehow.
I don't know. Anyway, so they get back to
Introducing them at the gate's a little weird. Yeah, get back to
the
the
inn.
inn.
Nynaeve's there.
The dancing. Oh, yeah, Nynaeve's there. I forgot about
Yeah,
that.
you have to introduce Nynaeve again.
So she's there. Wow, there's a lot of exposition in this
Yeah,
episode.
there is.
That's why I'm just trying to fly through this. I'm getting bored. Just talking
I think
about
there's
it.
definitely ways that could be shot to do it. I think we should get Nynaeve's conversation with Moraine instead of like the boys waiting outside.
After the boys show
Yeah,
up. and
after
they
the
leave.
like awkward, icy confrontation. Then the
But
dancing.
I don't think there's really much of a conversation between them.
No, it's Moraine being like, "Tell me about these boys," and Nynaeve being like, "Screw you." Like, it's
Yeah. The boys show up and they leave, and it's still like, hey, here's this. Okay, nothing
well, I
changed.
think there has to be something said during that conversation that convinces Nynaeve to follow them rather than try to force. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. The only thing I think that's important in this conversation is it's a way to get the exposition that happens between Rand and Nynaeve,
Mhm.
but instead we get the information between Nynaeve and Moraine.
Maybe.
It pulls us away from Rand more. That's
Yeah.
the only reason I want to see the conversation.
And it could be they could even throw in stuff of where the other boys are from, and they could throw in something weird like Abel also went traveling or something like that, where kind of diffuses Rand being the only outsider.
Yeah,
I don't know how to do it or what they would change, but it could be very. I just think it would be useful to diffuse that.
well, if they have
little bit.
if they have the conversation between Moraine and Nynaeve specifically says that they are all Two Rivers boys.
Right.
She does not in any way, she just doesn't give any information away. And we do not need to hear the whole Rand Nynaeve conversation because I don't need to hear about Rand's daddy issues. I don't think they're important to this show, to be completely honest, until the end of book 1.
That's funny because you said in the last episode that the Rand Tam dynamic is super important.
Because it's his character. We need to see it as part of his character in the first episode. Like, we need to see the prankster part of Matt. We need to see the stoic Perrin.
Yeah, and insecure Rand.
The insecurity in Rand. But the insecurity specifically about his dad later on, we don't need to keep getting back and forth with it because the more that I think it's be super important, but it maybe comes up in certain things. Maybe how he gravitates towards the land, and for the astute watcher, they'll be like, But for most people, they'd be like, whatever. Because in the books, it's fine. We're in Rand's head. Of course it's going to be on all the time. But because I want to keep the ambiguity for as long as possible, him constantly harping on the fact that Tam's not his dad, and I'm not from the Two Rivers, and other hints we get, make it too obvious that
I don't know.
he's the one Moraine's after.
Anyway,
But okay,
dance scene.
we get to dancing.
I think it's just a cute, fun scene.
Yep, it's a cute, fun scene. It should just be. There's a little bit of that weirdness during we have the bath scene, relaxing. We have creepy, not like high intensity, but we have the creepy of the dream and the bad vein and the Rand going crazy.
Right.
And then we go back to pleasant for a while.
Yeah. And then
dance scene. Everybody goes to bed.
Bran goes to get a glass of milk because of course he does, and runs into a fade.
Yeah. That whole thing happens. They all run away. They get to the gate. That should be the focus of the episode almost. That should be the high point of the episode.
Well,
I
I
almost
think
want to say.
they get over the gate. I think this should be a really short scene. I don't think it should be, the confrontation shouldn't drag out as long. Keep running.
Real quick, this goes back to the whole higher tower jumping in, Moraine lets him die thing. I probably, other than the Min thing, the conversation between Nynaeve and Moraine, although it can be shortened up and stuff, I think is probably one of the most important expositions for the episode. Because that's the first time we get any rationalization from Moraine, and it is a cold rationalization.
Yeah, I don't know.
But with the high tower thing, it might not be needed if that's true.
Yeah.
All right, so they're running.
Trollocs
Lan
starts
goes
a
back to
game.
scout. Trollocs.
Moraine does some cool magic stuff.
Well, they go off the road.
And they go to Shadar Logoth.
Explosions of fire, waves of earth. The first fight, I almost say we do from Perrin's point of view.
Really?
No, because he's all about fighting later.
I don't think this...
Matt's point of view doesn't work.
I think this is just like a battle sequence. You just kind of... I mean, and it's not even a battle. It's like 2 seconds of, oh no, the Trollocs are here. Matt almost dies. There's some yelling in Old Tongue, you know?
Yeah, I don't know. It's one thing with more books I'm reading that have battles and they're important. It's one thing I guess you can do in books that you can't do in shows. You just see it in shows, and it's a focus in books a lot that battles are short.
Right.
Like they feel like forever, but then it's over, and you don't know how long it was and stuff like that.
Right.
But I guess in a show you just see how long it is.
Right, and I think this should be really short. They think they're not going to make it. They're running into Shadar Logoth. They think they're not going to make it. They have their charge. Matt sprouts off some nonsense. Then they clash.
Having all the
Everybody
battle cries,
almost
the
dies.
clash. I don't know. And see, this is one thing about the books. It's hard to translate exactly what the books are trying to say in a show without doing it from somebody's point of view, because the distortion of time for these kids who've never been in a battle is a little important. And the fact that head gets chopped off and everything ends. I don't know. There's something about when you read that scene that I don't think can be translated to the TV show.
I think you'd be surprised.
I just don't think it's possible.
I think it'll be good.
It could still be good, but I don't think it can be quite the same.
Yeah.
In retrospect, later on it
Yeah.
can, but
I think it's going to be the after effects that play that and how the boys react to it. So they get into Shadar Logoth. Matt's an idiot.
Yes. The montage and the chase sequence are a lot of what we've gone through. We have montage, Barrelon, chase sequence.
All right.
Montage and chase sequence are 5 minutes of the episode, and Barrelon is 15 minutes of the episode. So
Maybe. I don't know. I think the montage is going to be a little bit longer because you want to have stuff in there.
I know. I'm being a little facetious,
Yeah.
but it's just like
So anyway, we get into Shadar
I
Logoth.
remember now why it was only 9 chapters. Yeah, they get to Shadar Logoth.
Matt's an idiot. That's all I have to say.
Matt's an idiot.
They decide to explore. This is one I think they might abbreviate this whole thing less, just so they don't have to build a huge elaborate set that's going to be used like once.
I mean, they could literally go from, hey guys, let's go exploring, to, hey, Matt's kicking a piece of rubble down a rubble pile as Perrin and Rand are talking about Matt being crazy looking for treasure.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's how quick that scene is.
Right, and then
That's all we
Mordeth
need.
shows up and is like, yo guys, I got some great treasure. Come help me carry it. And they're all like, sounds good. As if they're not in a creepy abandoned city. Idiots.
You know what's funny about Mordeth? Every time between readings and everything like that, I cannot picture him.
I think
Weirdly enough.
he's in outdated clothing, so for whatever costumers are doing, whatever era they're drawing from, he needs to be like 200 years out of date in his clothing. I think he needs a weird accent, so he definitely...
Wheel of Time clothing is just weird to
Well,
begin
right,
with.
but out-of-date clothing. I don't know, I always pictured him as kind of a shorter squatter guy, which is weird because, like, the corrupted advisor trope is typically, like, skinny and lean, but I always picture him the other way, and I don't know why.
My whole thing, and I think the reason is because in Rand's point of view, like, he doesn't seem too sketchy. You want to know who he makes me think of in a weird way? Not looking like this, but, Mr. Smith. Is that who it is from The Matrix?
I don't know.
He's just kind of like, he's a person. There's nothing to make him different than anybody else. It should be, he's almost, I mean, yeah, the outdated clothing, but other than that, he should be, like, uninteresting, average.
Other than the fact that he's a random dude hanging out in a creepy city in the middle of nowhere for.
Yeah, but I don't know. I don't know why, because, like I said, just sitting here, I'm like, I cannot picture him.
Yeah, I think
And
he
that's
should
why
be
I
a pretty
think
average
having him
guy.
be,
I think a little bit, like I said, I picture him a little bit on the heavier side for some reason. I don't know why. Not like Danny DeVito or anything, but like,
I mean, I get what you're saying.
I don't know.
But okay, so they follow him down,
Big pile of treasure.
get to the treasure, big pile of dragon's hoard, pretty much. That's the kind of treasure I imagine it
Yeah,
is.
basically.
They start going through stuff. Help me carry it. Oh, we need to get back.
Well, it's Rand notices he doesn't have a shadow.
Oh, there's some conversation before that, which isn't important. And that's the thing, the shadow. And that's why I said we need to kind of make him unassuming, because, and this will be cinematography, lighting, and all that stuff done in a way that when you hear it, and for obviously readers, we'll be watching for it, so we'll already be aware. But for first-time watchers, it's like, when you hear you don't have a shadow, you're like, I need to rewind now.
Right. Like, wait, he doesn't have a shadow? Like, it might, and it's that kind of thing that if, like, you're paying attention when you're watching, you might notice it and be like, what's going on? So, I think it'll be a
Yeah.
really cool visual thing.
So maybe unassuming, but he needs like a feather in his hat to describe.
Do we see Matt take the dagger? Or do you want that reveal to be saved
No.
for later?
Well, I mean, in the book, he has the dagger when they all freak out and are turned on him, and they pull him away. And when they're pulling him away, the dagger's gone.
Right.
Which I think it's fine to do it that way because he didn't have any weapon on him.
Right. So he just kind of grabbed it. Okay. I'm kind of torn on this one if I want to see him slip it into his pocket or whatever, or
I
not.
don't think it's important. I don't think we need to see it. It should be the first half of the first season, I guess it's probably going to be, but I want to not know anything in the show is how I want it to be. I want to be so lost. I mean, I read the books, so
Right.
of course I know, but I want to be so not knowing anything, except for if you've read the books, you'll know all the little hints here and there.
I think the risk with that is people stop watching if they're too confused. You want people to be a little confused
know.
to the point of being interested, but if they're too confused,
Oh, well, yeah, but it's just like, what's the point of seeing him slip the dagger in? That just,
well, I think you do it one of two ways. You either don't see him take it, and then you still get Moraine's explanation of like why it's bad, or you see him take it, which is like was that a good idea? And we never hear from Moraine why it would be a bad idea. You need to do one or the other. Where either way, it kind of leaves you on this, something's not right, but I don't know what. So it's like, something's not right because I know taking things from this place is bad, but the boys didn't take anything right. Or you do it,
yeah.
Matt's taking something and that doesn't seem like a good idea, but you don't know why it's not a good idea. One or the other. Did that make sense?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I think hearing the explanation, but assuming they didn't take anything, like, because at one point, every single one of the boys were playing with the treasure. Perrin was playing with a giant golden jeweled axe. The only difference is, because they'd have to reread it. I don't know if if he still had that in his hand when they turned on Mordeth, or if he pulled his own axe
I
out.
don't know. I think he kind of had stepped away. I think, like, if I remember right, like I said, I'm behind on my reading. Um, if I remember right, I think he kind of backs the boy. Rand and Perrin kind of start to back away from the treasure while Matt's still looking, but I don't remember that scene. So I don't know. I'm kind of 50-50 on how I want that done.
But I don't know. So we have that, and
Then the Trollocs. Well, they get back to Moraine and them, and Lan is off looking for them. And then Moraine does some exposition stuff. And then Lan shows up and says there are Trollocs in the city.
they were sleeping when Land comes back, right?
I don't remember. I don't think so, but I don't remember.
I think
I don't think
no,
it
because
matters either
he's
way.
gone for. I think it does. See, this is a weird thing with Wheel of Time because like there's a lot of exposition in the books. We're talking about where we're at right now, and I'm like, I feel like there's so much that's happened, but really there isn't. But at the same time, the Wheel of Time is going to be such a super sensory overload early on in these first couple of
There is a
episodes.
lot of new information that comes in very early. And that's just it. I don't think there's a lot of action happening, but it's all like running because they
But
die if they
this
didn't.
is my thing. Well, I know, but I mean, like episode one, it starts out with a slightly calm point, and then it gets crazy, stressful, and then crazy again.
Right.
That's episode one. Episode two starts off with crazy, that weird calm point, and then crazy and stressful, and all the way through until
The end of episode 2 is going to be just as yeah, it's a lot of panic and running and high energy, and that's why I think scenes like Barillon are super important because otherwise it's just like a heart attack the entire way through.
I know. So okay, sorry. Yeah, Lance shows up. Trollocs are coming. There's a lot of them. They start trying to
They
leave.
run, they end up getting split up because of
They run. They
the
get
mashup.
separated. I don't know how I feel about. I would almost just because I don't feel like jumping from different points of views when they get separated. I would almost be like almost right at the gate, like something happens and they get separated and they all run their different ways into the woods.
No,
I don't know.
I like the idea
I'm
of
being
them.
lazy now.
Yeah. I like the idea of them running through the city at different points getting split and we see this running from the different perspectives and things. Honestly, and this is such a
Yeah,
dumb analogy, but what's running through my head right now is that scene from Shrek when they're running away from the dragon. And that's not at all what this scene is going to be like, but that's what my brain is doing
no.
right now.
Because I was about to say my brain was doing the classic an episode of Scooby Doo when they're all running back and forth through the hallways.
Or that. You know what? I think that's pretty accurate to what this scene will be.
But honestly, yeah, they don't really. I don't know. I think that my problem there's nothing really to change. You
No,
get
at
through
this
this
point, I think
part.
I'd keep it pretty much the same. So where do we think everything will end up?
So we have Matt, Rand, and Tom. Which we haven't talked about it all because honestly, wow, he's boring when you're talking about it
Right.
like
It's
this.
like a really exciting scene to read, and it's a really, I'm sure it's going to be a very exciting scene on the show, but it's hard to like talk about in an exciting way because it's just like they're all running and they get split up and they kind of meet back up. And that,
Yeah. So we have the three of them.
I think so. I think,
I think because we talked about this a little bit is because I know we talked about this before is we can have. I think when they get split up in the city, I think we pick up with A, B, or C. I don't care for point of view in the city, and we show them get out, run, and end up where they're gonna be.
right. I kind of think so. If we stick with, I think we kind of like, I think at one point we show Nynaeve running through the city, but I think we kind of leave her there. I don't think we pick back up with her. I actually think the like reunion of Rand, Matt, and Tom we should have from Tom's point of view. I don't know why, but I kind of like that. And then I think we end with
I think
them
between
on
I
Don't
think
launch ship.
between yeah, and with them.
Oh, see,
Literally as soon as
okay. I was gonna say, like, we get them on Dahlman's ship, almost a quiet moment, not quite a quiet moment of like, the boom launches, the ship's moving, they're safe. And then we switch to Perrin and Egwene, and we end on a literal cliffhanger where we end the episode with Perrin and Egwene launching themselves off the cliff, which is super
I don't know,
cheesy.
I'm kind of again, this is because it's such a rushed episode or number. Because I would go at least one more episode than the titles are suggesting. Because I was gonna say where I would like to do it. So it would be really fun to, we get the whole Matt, Rand, and Tom follow their point of view. I would end the episode after they get on the ship, do their conversation, and they're sailing down. I would end the episode with the one of the arguments of "Are you sure they're alive?" and Matt being really pissy and saying, "No, they're all dead."
Well, and I think
And we don't know.
that's why you end it with you don't know where anybody is. So like last you saw Rand, Matt, and Tom were on this ship, but we don't know if they're going to be allowed to stay on the ship. They might get kicked off. You have last we saw of Nynaeve,
True.
she was running through the city getting pursued by Trollocs. And last we saw of Perrin and Egwene was them launching themselves off of a cliff. And so then we don't know where they are. For the viewers, everybody's fate is uncertain. And I kind of like that.
I guess. That could work.
I don't know. It's really cheesy.
Everybody's fate. I mean, I agree, and I know when we talked about it before, it's a good ending point, but I still feel like we're only like 40 minutes into an episode at that point. I know that sounds crazy, but
I don't know.
talking this through,
Action scenes are so hard to figure out the timing of. Action scenes and exposition dumps are so hard to figure out the timing. Because, like, you can't have an exposition dump go on for 20 minutes because that's boring.
yeah, and it's gonna be really interesting, and I'm okay. I agree with you. That is a good ending point. So, but really quick, let's just see if we're gonna say if we're gonna go on a little longer because episode time, for instance,
Okay.
and we had 10 minutes left. I'm trying to think where they could end after that
Right, well, that's
because
just
everybody
it.
split up.
I
Then
can't think of anything exciting to end on after that point.
I would say show Rand, Matt, and Tom getting on the ship. We're not quite sure what happens there. I would go. So we just had a really stressful thing. I would cut to Perrin's point of
Oh,
view.
see, I was going to say if we're going to go further, I would do Nynaeve's point of view. Because that's kind of how they do it in the book
I mean,
anyway, is that, like, we go to Nynaeve and Nynaeve's fine, but we don't know if anyone else is fine.
mm,
And so that's kind of like,
there's a reason I don't go to Nynaeve because I would pair up Nynaeve, that point of view of Nynaeve, with the certain stuff with Rand. It's very important in my mind that it has to be done that way because it's awesome, and that's when the ambiguity
okay,
can
I get
stop,
what you're saying.
possibly. But I would go if the episode went a little bit longer because you're just talking about the stress. I think what would work is we don't know what happened with Matt, Rand, and Tom. Cut to Perrin waking up the next day. We kind of we know the stakes are still high, but I really actually enjoy it. It's kind of a calm down at the end of that episode.
End with a calmer. Okay.
Him going along the beach, him finding Egwene, them talking a little bit, and them setting off on their journey to try to get to Caemlyn. That gives us a couple extra minutes that I think would be enjoyable.
And just end on a calmer note. That's just kind of where I'm at. I think if they're releasing it weekly, you want to end on a high note of what's happening. But if they're releasing it all as I don't know. I'm not sure what the end of this is.
I'm not going to try to predict. I could give you 6 different versions of each episode based on are they going to release this many episodes? Are they going to release weekly, bi-weekly, monthly,
Yeah.
all at once? I'm still
Yeah,
assuming
no,
like
now
all
that
at
you
once,
mention it
but
though, I do think, I don't know, I was just going for the easy cheesy ending. And I think you're right. They should probably go to a calmer moment and just kind of
I think because after the first two episodes, we've just I I'm tired talking about it,
Right,
and not just because we've been talking a while, but it's like that's a lot.
right. Like
It's a lot to take
talking
in.
about it like this, it becomes very apparent just how panicked it is the whole time, and that that's a lot for one episode. So I do think ending on a lower note, on a calmer note, is good.
And I specifically pick Perrins because him and Egwene just it ends at a good
That's
point.
true. They've made a plan.
The Matt and Rand stuff, once you start into this stuff on the ship, you gotta keep going.
Oh, the other option is we follow Rand, Matt, and Tom until they get to Whitebridge.
That is the other one. That is possible too.
There's different possibilities depending on how much time it is.
And specifically, if I can't remember exactly in the book, but the Nynaeve point of view, I want to wait as long as possible for that.
Okay.
Because knowing Rand, Perrin, Matt, and Egwene are alive, whatever, but did Moraine survive?
I don't think that's even a question, though. Like, I don't think you question whether or not Moraine will survive this because you know she's a super awesome wizard lady.
Maybe. I don't know. I feel like one of the point of views should be left for as long as possible.
Right. I don't know.
That still makes sense.
Well, you can't. The problem is, I want the
You want the
time of.
chronology to work.
Well, it's more the timeline. I want the timeline of their interactions to line up better in the show. So, like, certain things have to happen.
Yeah.
Like, because we know Moraine, Lan, and Nynaeve show up in Whitebridge shortly after Matt and Rand leave Whitebridge. So you have to have. So that's the one thing I want to be careful of is that these timelines actually line up.
I mean, the Perrin Egwene one, it's like it can't really line up with anything though. Like,
Well, we know
not until much later
right,
on.
but I think you can be careful to make it fit certain things. But so I don't know. We have what 3 possible endings for this episode now, based on which storyline.
Yeah.
That's fine.
All right. I think we've thoroughly exhausted how much there can be said. All right. Let's just want to say thank you to anybody who's tuned into this, our fourth episode of Another Turning. Please leave a comment. Let us know how we're doing.
Yeah,
Give us some feedback of what to do better.
that'd be great. Yeah, we're new at this, and I think it shows. And so feedback is very welcome. We really enjoyed all of the comments we've gotten so far. If you don't want to leave a YouTube comment, you can get in touch with us on Twitter or Instagram.
Also, I think our next episode we're planning on watching. What's the title?
Winter Dragon. So I have a break coming up.
Yes.
So I'm going to go home. We're going to watch Winter Dragon. Maybe we'll drag our parents into watching with us. Who knows?
And that, I think, will be a fun episode to tune into next time.
Yep. So look forward to that, and we will see you the next time the wheel turns.